Welcome to the Mature tutorial. Mature is a pretty aggressive character. I mean, every character in this game is aggressive, but she's especially aggressive. She doesn't have any standing overhead or command grab, and her throw is a soft knockdown. So you probably wouldn't think she's that big of a rushdown character, but she actually is because of this move, and this move, and this move. And she doesn't really have very good defense either. Her only invincible reversals require meter, and they're all slow, like really slow. She's also a pretty difficult character to optimize. She's a pretty hard to do drive cancel. And the timing and spacing of this move to cross up is pretty precise as well. And if you want to spend meter, you have to be able to do 2-frame links. Alright, let's talk about all of her attacks one by one. Standing jab is an anti-hop only tool basically because it whiffs versus crouching characters. However, on hit, if you chain into it, it will still work on crouching characters. If they somehow end up blocking this, it is 0 on block, which is tied for her best frame advantage on block normal. Crouching A is pretty basic. You might use it in some strings now and again. She has a close B, which hits twice. In the first hit, hits low, but you usually don't want it because the damage is 30 split between 2 hits. And in this game, that means double the damage scaling. So it's usually better to use far B. Speaking of far B, it's an okay poke, but you usually only see it in combos. Crouch B is your main low attack, which obviously chains into her standing Bs. Close C, as I mentioned earlier, is a 3-frame heavy attack. And it is a close normal, but it actually has quite a big activation range. That was too far, but that was not too far. It is very minus, even on hit, so you basically always want to cancel it into something. Perhaps a cross-up despair. It also functions very well as an anti-air. Crouch C can function as an anti-air if you're out of range of close C, but that's not very often. Close D is completely useless as far as I can tell. Far D is also pretty bad because it whiffs versus crouching opponents, although it is slightly faster than Far C, although Far C does hit crouching characters. Crouching D is quite pitiful, actually. You very rarely see any of this character's D normals. And finally we have Standing CD, which is quite spectacular actually. It has very good range and very good block stun, and you can cancel it, although it is a little bit slower than Far C. And that's it as far as normals go. She doesn't have any command normals, and she can't link any of her normals together. She only has chains between her lights. Your main confirm then is crouch B, stand B, basically. Her jump attacks are pretty streamlined. Her jumping punches are pretty good air-to-ground moves, and her jumping kicks are pretty good air-to-air moves defensively. And her jumping CD is a little bit slower than them, but it kind of does both jobs at once. It's good air-to-air and air-to-ground. As far as damage, her light punches do 25, and her light kicks all do 30, although remember close B is split between 2 different hits. Her heavies are 70, except for her far heavies, which are 80, and her sweep, which is 80. Now let's talk about her special moves, starting with the Rekka. So quarterback and punch is this Rekka move which hits 3 times, and you can do it 3 times for a total of 9 hits. This is your main combo ender most of the time, because you can dash in and get some pressure after it. Now these are all unsafe on block. The first one is -5 at best, and unlike other games, if you space them, you actually get fewer hits and the frame advantage gets worse. And obviously if you do 2 or more, the frame advantage just gets worse and worse. So the Rekka mix-up exists, but it's never in your favor. You should only be doing Rekkas on hit. The EX Rekka can be repeated 5 times instead of 3 times. And each hit is only 1 hit, which is a lot better for damage scaling. So you might use these in combos from time to time. However, just like the meterless Rekka, the EX Rekka is always minus a billion on block, so don't use it on block. Next is the Massacre. Light Massacre is this little swipe thing. It's -4 on block and really fast, so bad players probably won't be able to punish it, but good players will be able to punish it. Unless you space it really well. Most characters can't punish something that's -4 all the way back here. The heavy version is much slower, but she runs forward for a while, and it is plus on block. Now there's no way to guarantee that they block this. Even if you cancel it from a CD, they still have a chance to uppercut or roll out in between the 2 hits. But it's still better than doing a block string and then running in. So use this to reset your pressure from time to time and keep the opponent on their toes. If these hit, the light version is a little bit plus, but you can't get a combo or anything off of it. The heavy version, however, is very plus when you can link a close-C. This is a 3-frame link into close-C. And this does quite a bit of damage, so technically that's your max damage punish option, although you usually don't see it used that way. The EX version is sort of in between the 2 versions. It's pretty fast, so it combos from heavies, and you can still link close-C after it. And in fact, this is your main use of EX meter. Now the problem is that it only combos from heavies, it won't combo from lights. Her next special is the Fireball. These are all really slow on startup. You're mainly going to use the light version from far away, because after you throw it, you can follow it in and there's nothing that the opponent can do to stop your pressure. But I've already made a video talking about projectiles, so I'll just link you to that video. The heavy version is actually slower on startup, but it travels faster, so you can't really follow it in as well as the light version, but it can throw off opponents that are trying to avoid the light version. The EX version has even more startup, but travels insanely slowly and hits 3 times. In fact, you can even run in after it and get there before it does. It's a fun little gimmick to use if you have the meter to spend, but her meter is usually better spent elsewhere. Next is Despair. First of all, the EX version is just your typical invincible DP move. It is invincible on frame 1, but unsafe on block. You can get a tiny little juggle after it, but not much. And it's really slow on startup. This is like the easiest uppercut in the game to safe jump. The meterless version of Despair is very different. The light version is a low hop, and the heavy version is a big jump. They are comparable in trajectory to her hyper hop and super jump, but the key difference is that they can be cancelled into from normal attacks. And as you saw, you can do a follow-up attack during either version by pressing a punch button again. You can choose to not press the punch button and do an empty Despair, but there's really no reason to because you have more landing recovery on Despairs than you do on normal jumps. Normal jumps literally have 1 frame of trip guard, whereas a Despair has like 5 or 6. Now, if you time the Despair attack low to the ground, you're going to have plus frames if the opponent blocks it. And if they get hit, you can juggle them. At best, the light Despair will be plus 4 on block, and at best, the heavy Despair will be plus 7 on block. Now, Despairs are not overheads, so they can be crouch blocked, but it is possible for the Despair to cross up. And in fact, it's even possible for the Despair to cross up, but then you land in the front, which is really tricky. So already we have 2 key moves to Vice's pressure, namely the Despair, but also the D version of Massacre, because they function very similarly to running in and hopping in. So not only does the opponent have to worry about hops and jumps, but they also have to worry about anti-airing your Despairs when you cancel into them. So Mature has some of the scariest pressure in the game because she has the ability to do hop and mix-ups in different timings than any other characters, specifically earlier than other characters. And if the opponent never actually anti-airs your Despairs, you can just do it over and over and over again, and that's all plus on block over and over and over again. Now let's talk about her 4 different supers. Before I even show any of them, just know that they are all very minus on block. So only use them when you're pretty sure they're going to connect. Her first super is this one. This is an invincible super with really long startup. And if it hits, it automatically pulls the opponent all the way to the corner. And her other super is a little bit faster on startup, but does not have any invincibility on startup. It also does a little bit less damage, but the last hit is unscaled in combos. So even after a really long combo like this one, the last hit will always deal 100 unscaled damage. Now she has a level 2 version of this super, but you never really see it very often at all. Mainly because it does a little bit more damage than the level 1 version, but it only does 50 unscaled damage instead of 100 unscaled damage. And finally we have her NEOMAX. This is a medium speed overhead that is used at the end of HD combos, but you can also do it on reaction if the opponent does something slow from far away, like throw a fireball. Although keep in mind, unless you're in HD mode, it's going to cost you 3 bars and both drives to do this NEOMAX. And this character gets a lot of damage for 3 bars and HD if you get a clean hit. So it's up to you whether you want to use raw NEOMAX or save it for the HD combo. Alright, let's start talking about combos. Your basic combo is just crouch B, stand B, and then canceling into Rekkas. So that combo looks like this. If you wanted to spend a bar, you can also cancel into her super. You cannot cancel directly into her other super, it is a little bit too slow. So what if you want to spend a drive meter? Well, this is where this character gets a little bit interesting. You want to go into Rekkas like before, but you want to drive cancel the last hit of the Rekkas into a D Massacre. Like that. Now, remember, there are 3 Rekkas, but each Rekka has 3 hits, which means that you're trying to cancel specifically on the 9th hit. So, like that. If you cancel too early, like on the 8th hit, then it's not going to juggle them. And if you cancel too late, then they're just going to land on their feet and not get hit. So this is a pretty precise timing that you have to master with this character, otherwise you're not going to be able to do any of her combos that use drive meter. So the full combo is Rekka, 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 D Massacre, B Massacre, B Massacre, and then if you're in the corner, you can link a cl.C. Now, if you wanted to spend a bar and a drive, you can use the EX Rekkas instead, which is a little bit easier because the EX Rekkas are 5 instances of 1 hit instead of 3 instances of 3 hits. So that would look like this. It's much easier to time that drive cancel. Now, things change a little bit if you land a cl.C. And by the way, if you ever land the D Massacre, you can link a cl.C and your combos will be the same. Meterless is the same, you just go Rekkas. And 1 drive meter is the same, you just go Rekkas into the D Massacre into the corner combo. But as soon as you start spending energy meter, you have a new option, which is the EX Massacre, which does not work off of low Bs. So in every instance where you have energy meter to spend and you land a cl.C, it is more efficient to use EX Massacre as opposed to some other option. For example, if I do a basic combo with EX Massacre, I get 389. Whereas if I cancel to a super, I only get 279. So that's like 100 more damage from using EX Massacre combos. And this is a 2-frame link from the EX Massacre into the cl.C. And as you would expect, if you wanted to spend a bar and a drive off of the cl.C, you would use the EX Massacre and then go into the drive cancel. Like that. And now for your HD combos. You can activate HD off of your low B combos the same way that you would activate them off of your cl.C combos. So all of your HD combos are streamlined. And in fact, I would even say that you should only learn 1 HD combo, and that is her 2-bar HD combo, which looks like this. That's about 700 damage for HD and 2 bars. And you can probably guess what I'm going to do at the beginning of my 3-bar HD combo. That. If you want to spend more than 2 bars, you should try to land the EX Massacre first before activating HD. If you can do this, you can pretty easily gap 800 damage for 3 bars. And honestly, you probably shouldn't HD with Vice unless you have at least 2 bars. But if that combo's too hard for you, there is an easy alternative, which is to do Rekka, Rekka, Rekka. Don't wait until the last hit. B Massacre, Rekka, 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 repeat, repeat, repeat. And that looks like this. Instead of 700 damage, we're getting about 640-ish damage. Here's a meterless HD combo. And those are the only HD combos that I would ever use with this character ever, basically. And that's it for the mature tutorial for KOF13. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something. I will put links in the description to this character's frame data if you would like to explore her more. I will also have a link to a video of Verna playing this character. He is very, very, very good, and you would learn a lot from watching him play.